Hello, AP Gov students. We're in the final hours. This lecture is about the media. Okay. The two most important things to remember with the media are the functions that the media performs. First of all, it helps produce informed voters. It's how we get information that helps us decide what to vote for. And second of all, it serves a watchdog function on government. It keeps the government honest, basically, by investigating and reporting on what's going on as long as they can find out. Okay, so looking at the review sheet, one of the things the AP needs you to think about is are the trends in media consumption. Remember that it used to be print media, and then you get the radio, and then you kicked in with TV since the 50s and 60s, okay? And that shift in what people watch and how they get information has led to individualism, as we've talked about, the campaigns have become much more candidate-focused, okay? They can have direct contact with the people through the media and have to rely less on the political parties, okay? How do candidates communicate with the public, and how do they use the press? Let's talk about that for a second. I'm going to have to page forward. Remember that there is more of a demand for news, okay? And that even though we've just discussed how TV brought in an age of individualism, now we're even shifting to the internet, of course, and that's especially important because it attracts the youth. Okay. Remember that the what's going on with this thing? I'm sorry about this. Thought I had that figured out. Okay, so how do candidates use the press? Well, number one, they do slick television commercials. Okay. Number two, some of them have rallies like Mr. Trump to get the media to cover them and to provide free media coverage. All right. They do things like dropping trial balloons to cover leaks in the press. Okay. Let me go forward here, get my list so I make sure I don't lose anything. They really try to manage their image because they know that their personal appeal based on the way they look to people is really important. The purpose of the trial balloons that I was just talking about is basically to test theories, to test ideas, to see how they play out, and if they don't play out well, then they don't follow through with them. Okay. Now, a couple things that we know that have happened in journalism based on the changes that have occurred. For one thing, the media often treats campaigns like horse races. Okay. They focus on the strategy and who's in what position instead of on policy issues. Okay. And it kind of depends, frankly, on where you go for your media as to how thoroughly and how deep they go into the media issues. There are sources these days where you can get that information. It's just that most people don't look for them. Another thing the media does is investigative journalism. They use detective-like methods to investigate issues. The classic example is Watergate. Remember that it is the FCC that regulates the electronic media. There is no regulation for the print media, but there is regulation for electronic media, including television, including the internet. All right? We talked about the impact of the internet and social media. One of the things to remember is that most media is privately controlled, with the exception being public television and public radio. So since they're privately owned, their main goal is profits. Okay, they want to make money. And so what they do, how they select material to show and communicate is based on that. Now, we have a lot more outlets available to us in the media than we used to. Okay, you can go to so many different sources, but it's not as diverse as it looks because so many of them are owned by just 6 major telecommunications companies. Okay, so keep in mind that yes, there are more sources out there, but they're controlled by fewer of them, which has the impact of creating of reducing the diversity in the news. Okay. Remember that the target audience for most of the news is not your most educated person. They're trying to appeal to everybody. Newspapers write for an 8th grade level, for example. Okay. And that results in some superficiality. Also, we have a much faster paced environment and people want to get their news fast. So that affects the superficiality. You can't say as much. Television started this. It's not just, Twitter with its 240 characters. It started with television when they started doing sound bites and clips of people that didn't show you as much. It used to be people went to a speech and they saw the whole speech. And now you can look on on television or on the internet and just see little bits of it, which are unreliable because you don't know if the whole context has been included. Okay. Remember that the president is much more able to get news coverage than Congress is. He's only one person. Everybody votes on him, so everybody knows who he is. People are much less likely to know they're members of Congress, and there are so many more of them. The president has a lot more power than Congress has. So he dominates, he or she, maybe someday, in the news. Now, a lot of people have claimed that there is a news bias. They think there's a liberal bias. These are the conservatives, of course, that say this. But that's really not been shown to be true. The bias that tends to exist is the urban bias in favor of the city folks as opposed to the rural folks. Okay. Keep in mind that the one of the most important functions performed by the media is the agenda keeping or agenda setting, or gatekeeping function. Okay. And what that means is they help determine what goes on to the policy agenda, that imaginary list of issues that are important to the people and to government officials. That the media, through its choices about what to publish, help dictate what people care about, and in turn it helps dictate what the government officials care about because they see that. Okay, I hope that's clear. Now, there are a couple of other things we talked about with media. One is framing, that the media helps provide context for what we see. Even though they give us the facts, the way they give them to us can slant them one way or the other. Okay? And it may not be a political slant, it may just be a way of looking at it. There was also priming, which is what the media does to get you started thinking about things, to get you started caring about things. And the fact that they publish something on a subject, it makes you more interested in it. Okay? Let's see. I don't think there's anything else for this, so I'll sign off.